And we are live. This is another edition of DT Live. It is late Tuesday, June 26th. It is a little after 11 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone, U.S. time. Tonight, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be running through a install and first look of the newly released KaOS version 2018.06. Got my late night beverage here. A little bit of beer, with, being late in the evening plus Linux, gotta have a brew. Alright, I already have a couple of people in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, TJ's in the house. How you doing, TJ? Keegan says, burning the midnight oil. Yes, I am. This is a bit later than what I normally do as far as starting a stream. Again, trying to switch up the times a little bit. Marco says hi. Coding Byte is in the chat. Ansem is here. He says hello. Yeah. TJ's asking how am I? I'm doing fine. Just gonna do a quick little stream here before bed. So I needed to take a look at, well, I didn't need to take a look at, but I kind of interested in KaOS or KaOS. I'm not exactly sure how this Linux distribution is really supposed to be pronounced. I think the creators of this distribution actually call it KaOS, but you know what? KaOS is so much a better name, so I'm going to call it KaOS. And the KaOS developers, if you're listening, I think you guys should push this as KaOS. I think it's just a fantastic name. Yeah, is this a RPM distro? No, this is a independent distro. It drew its inspiration from Arch, but I don't think it's Arch based. But I think it's an independent distro, so as far as what kind of package management they're using, I am not entirely sure on that. We'll get into that though. Matter of fact, I guess I could go ahead and get into that. I was actually going to wait since I kind of started the stream. This is an impromptu stream. Nobody got a notification or anything. I was going to try to wait for a few people to show up before I started in on this. You know what I will do before I get into the heart of the matter with KaOS? Vegemite. I got my Vegemite today. I actually ate some live on Total OS today. He did a live stream earlier today, right when my doorbell rang and my Vegemite was delivered, so I tried it actually on his stream. It's not bad. Also, I didn't order just Vegemite. I mean, I didn't pay for 2-day shipping from Amazon just to get Vegemite. I also got this CanaKit Raspberry Pi 3, which I've already put it together and installed Raspbian on it. It works fine. So, not exactly sure what I'm going to do with the Raspberry Pi, but I've got one. So we might do some stuff with a Raspberry Pi on the channel. People were asking me about my laptops. It's kind of dark in this room because I don't have it all lit up. It's kind of late at night, but both my ThinkPad and my Toshiba satellite, they're stacked one on top of each other, are sitting on the desk. And I put the Raspberry Pi on top of them. So yes, I do have the laptops. Antergos OpenBox is still on the Toshiba satellite because I tested it out on the Big Daddy show. We all switched to Antergos for a week. And then this week we're all switching to KDE Neon, so I installed KDE Neon on the ThinkPad that I recently bought. So, alright. Anyway, just killing a little time before I create this VM and try to get KaOS installed here. Yeah, Vegemite, yeah. Do you come from a land down under? Yeah, great song, Land Down Under by Men at Work. If you were around in the 80s, you know that song. He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. Yeah, so Kenny was asking about the laptop. Yeah, they're sitting on the desk. I just don't have them powered up. Q1 Fiend, hey DT. Oh geez, the Vegemite, yeah. I ordered the 145 gram toothpaste tube of it. And I didn't have any bread. Everybody tells me to try it with toast, and I didn't have any bread handy when I decided to try it, so I actually just tried a little bit of it just on my finger, just put a little dab. It wasn't horrible. Probably would be very good on some buttered toast, actually. Tastes kind of meaty, kind of almost like beef broth or like beef bouillon, but really, really salty. So if you're the kind of person that doesn't like savory, salty things, you may not like it, but honestly, it's not that bad. Now, because it's such an intense flavor, you can't like get a real big glob of it. You're not going to take like a teaspoon of it and eat it. You know, just a little dab is really all you need. Yeah. And Brendan, wow, for the first time I actually caught a DT live stream. Yeah. Because for a while I was doing these live streams, it seemed like I always was doing them the same time, usually around 7 or 8 p.m. Central Time Zone here in the U.S. That seems to be when I got home and I felt like actually doing a live stream. That's always when I hit the button. So I'm trying to switch it up a little bit now. Sometimes, I get early afternoons or even mornings. Tonight I'm doing, a bit later than what I normally do. So I'm trying to catch a little bit of a different crowd with each of these live streams I do. Daniel's asking how to set up a thin client. I'm not going to get into any of that right now. Robert, greetings. How you doing, Robert? Joe Panico says, hiya, Derek. My Vegemite's on its way. Awesome. Looks like he ordered the same toothpaste tube. Excuse me. Voice is starting to cut out. Need to drink something. Yeah, unless something has changed, there isn't a pre-installed firewall on KDE Neon. You know what? Probably not, because KDE Neon is a very, very minimal distro. Basically, it's an Ubuntu base, but the only thing installed on it is the KDE Plasma desktop. A few of your basic KDE apps, but nothing extra. So, William Armstrong is in the chat. He says, hi, how you doing, William? Siva thought Neon had a UFW. Yeah, the uncomplicated firewall. That's what most Ubuntu-based distros use, is UFW. Maverick, hi, Derek. OMG, Vegemite is going viral with you guys. Yeah, it will be interesting as I don't use salt. Because of that, I taste salt when it's in food more than I ever did. Yeah, I don't do a lot with salt either. Like when I cook, I don't add a lot of salt to my food. But it's not that bad. Again, just, small quantity. Yeah, KaOS versus Control, yeah. Neon makes you download a package for the GUFW, for the uncomplicated firewall. Yep. Yeah, so it's 1 a.m. Central Time, 12 a.m. Actually, it's 11 a.m. Central Time. I think William mistyped there. Yeah, Kerwin says, hey, DT, how you doing, Kerwin? Yeah, KaOS is Pac-Man, so they use the Pac-Man package manager. Yeah, because reading some of the release notes and reading on their website, they do mention their distro was inspired by Arch. So one of the great things about Arch is the Pac-Man package manager. All right, so I don't want to be, on here till the wee hours of the morning, so I am going to get it started on installing KaOS or KaOS. I'm just going to call it KaOS. Anyway, I'm going to create a VM. So I'm going to create, I normally don't show you guys me creating these VMs, but let me show you how I typically do these things. So go to New here in Virtualbox. We need to name it KaOS, and I'll give it the version number, 2018.06. Alright, it's asking the type. Is this a Windows VM? No, this is a Linux VM. It's asking version. Is it Ubuntu based, 64-bit? It's not. It is an independent base, so I probably should choose either other Linux, 64-bit, 64-bit distro, or actually Linux 2.6, 3.x, 4.x, 64-bit. That's the one I'm going to go with. Let's see how that one works. Alright, RAM size, the default for VirtualBox is 1 gig, but really you should give it, 4 gigs. If you got the RAM on your machine. And I've got 16 gigs on my host machine, so I typically give my VMs 4 gigs, sometimes 6 gigs if the desktop environment really needs it. GNOME, oftentimes I like to bump it up to 6 gigs. Same thing with the deepened desktop environment. Sometimes I do Cinnamon as well. I bump it up to 6 gigs of RAM. Alright, do I want to create a virtual hard disk? Of course. So, obviously our virtual machine needs a virtual hard disk to do the install. If you're running a live image, then you don't have to create a hard disk, of course, but to run through the install, you will need a virtual hard disk. Image type for the disk, virtual hard disk, VDI is the default. I'm going to leave that. Do we want our physical or virtual hard disk here used dynamically allocated, or do we want it a fixed size? Dynamically allocated is best. Alright, and the default size for a hard drive in VirtualBox for Linux installs is 8 gigs. I usually bump this up to 15. 15 gigs is usually more than enough for like 95% of the Linux installs I do. Occasionally I'll run across one where 15 gigs just isn't quite enough. Alright, when I'm done with that, I right click on the new VM that I created. I go to the System tab. Now I have a 6-core processor. I like giving my VMs 2 cores of my 6-core processor. That's optional. 1 core would probably be fine, but I like bumping it up to 2 cores. The most important thing is to go to Display, and under Display Acceleration, you have to enable 3D acceleration. If you don't enable 3D acceleration, your VM's probably not going to function correctly for most Linux distros. So. Video memory, I usually bump this up. We'll just give it 64 megs. Alright, storage. This is where we attach the ISO. So right here, controller IDE. I'm going to click Add Optical Drive. It's going to ask me to choose disk. And I'm going to find the ISO I downloaded for KaOS 2018.06. And you know what? What was the size on that? 1.28 gigs. No, that's not it. 1.84 gigs. So pretty hefty ISO, 1.8 gigs. Anyway, so we've got the ISO attached. This would be the same as like plugging in a USB drive on physical hardware or inserting a DVD, a live DVD on physical hardware. That's what we just did by attaching that ISO. And then this is purely optional, but because I'm recording this, I like to get rid of all the menus and the bottom status bar and everything in VirtualBox. All I want you guys to see is the virtual machine. I don't want you to see any of the, menu system or any of the extra clutter, because it's just going to distract us from actually looking at the VM. And once I'm done with that, I'm ready to launch this VM. Control F will get me full screen. Alright, and of course we get to the boot menu. Our options in the boot menu are Start KaOS Live. This takes us straight to the live desktop. We can boot with NVIDIA non-free. We can boot from a hard disk. There's nothing on the hard disk here because this is a virtual hard disk we just created. Hardware detection tool, and we also have memtest. What we need is the first option, Start KaOS Live. And it may take a minute or two to boot into the live environment. Just like booting off a live USB or booting off a live DVD, booting directly off the ISO can take a minute. And I take a sip of my tasty beverage. While I wait for the boot, get back to the chat for a second. Alright. Yeah, William, he says he's fine. Brendan, having weird issues with Docky and 1804 based distros? Yeah, I haven't used Docky in a long time. You might try Plank. Plank is a fork of Docky. Let's see. Hey, what's up, DT? Just picked up a ROG Strix GL503 running Star OS. It's blazing fast. That's Horace. How you doing, Horace? Alan Rocco says hi. Hi, Alan. Hi, Tux. Tux is in the chat. What window manager are you using? Not sure who that was for. I'm sure it's not for me because KaOS is going to be running KDE, of course. Let's see. Siva. Oh, I ended up installing Manjaro KDE. Very cool. Ladies and gentlemen, says good work, DT. Haven't done much yet, but we just created a VM, attached the ISO, and here's the live environment. KaOS has this really interesting layout for Plasma because they put the panel on the right hand side of the screen, which I'll be honest, the right hand side of the screen for a panel makes the least sense of all four corners to put a panel. Unless you live in a country and speak a language where you read right to left. Most of us, certainly in the Western world, everything is done left to right. So having the panel on the right-hand side of the screen is a bad move. Everything is done on the left for the most part. In the Western world, you read right to left. A lot of times your menu systems are all on the right. When you have a browser open, where are the control buttons as far as forward and back? They're on the left. Everything is on the left-hand side of the screen. Get that panel over on the left-hand side of the screen, because this is going to create a lot of mouse travel. But anyway, I'm not going to review the live environment. I want to run through the install. So I'm going to click Install KaOS. Yeah, looking back at the chat, Brendan was asking me about what window manager. Yeah, I'm running on my host machine, if that's what you were asking, Qtile. Qtile is a tiling window manager written in Python. Done several videos about Qtile on the channel. Check them out. Alright, so we have the installer here. Looks like the Calamares installer. Language, American English, has been chosen for us. That's correct. Release notes. I'm not going to read the release notes in the installation process. I may read the release notes actually on KaOS's website later. Location. Chicago, the central time zone in the U.S. That's correct for me. Alright. Keyboard layout, English US is correct for me. We have a test field we could type in to check it out. Just going to click Next. Partitions, we have the option of erase disk and give the entire 15 gigs of this virtual hard drive to KaOS, or we can do some manual partitioning. I'm just going to let KaOS do its own automatic partitioning. Looks like it's going to create an XFS file system. That's interesting. Instead of an extended 4 file system, it's going to use XFS. Alright, now we need to create a username. DT will be my username. We need to create a super secure password for the user DT, so I'm going to create a strong and complicated password. Alright, now do we want to log in automatically without asking for a password? No, the reason I created that complicated password is, I want to be asked for a password, so I'm not going to tick that on. Do we want to use the same password for the administrator account? I will tick that on. So my DT user's password is also the same as my sudoer's password, so I don't have to remember 2 different passwords. Alright, click Next, and then we get a summary. We can review this. Everything looks good. I'm just going to click Install. We get our warning. It's about to format the drive and write to the disk. So if you click Install now, away you go. And that's what I'm going to do. And typically, for most modern Linux distros, once you get to this point where the installation begins, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. And Kaizoku, I hope I pronounced your name right, says, "Sup, how you doing?" Yeah, put the panel on the bottom, yeah, like a normal person, yeah. Top and bottom, they work for the panel. Left really makes a lot of sense because, again, so much of what your workflow on a computer originates on the left-hand side of the screen, so that makes sense. The only real place a panel doesn't make any sense at all is the right side of the screen. And for some reason, the KaOS devs have decided that's where they want to put their panel. I will say it's very unique because nobody else does that. But, again, I think the reason nobody else does that is it really doesn't make much sense. It's just too much mouse travel. Yeah, Spin Viking, he says, "Hi, DT. How you doing, Spin?" Yeah, Brendan, he was asking about what window manager I was using. He says he may have to give Qtile a try. Yeah, I've been watching the Obscure Window Manager Project series. Very cool. Been using Awesome on the side with XFCE on Mint 18. Very cool, Brendan. Yeah, if you've tried Awesome and you like Awesome, then you'll have no problems with something like Qtile or a dozen other tiling window managers. For the most part, they function very similarly. The configuration's a little different because each tiling window manager tends to be written in different languages. Some of them, Qtile's written in Python, Awesome's written in Lua, Xmonad's written in Haskell. Some of them have their own kind of scripting language. It just depends. Now, for some reason, this installer doesn't like to set up a boot flag on my computer. The KaOS installer? Well, it'll be interesting to see if I run into that problem. If after the installation is done, I reboot the machine and it doesn't want to boot up, we'll know that's an issue. I guess what you can do though is just go back with the live USB stick and set up the boot flags. Of course, yeah, I understand that's a hassle. I mean, if you do automatic partitioning and everything the way I just did, yeah, they should definitely have that boot flag set. That's a major bug if they don't. Yeah, Hex is in the chat. He says, hello. How you doing, Hex? Tux is informing us about the XFS file system. The max file size is 8 exabytes. I'm assuming that's a really big max file size. Yeah, Peter, 4 panels and you do not need to choose. Suits everyone. Yeah, put 4 panels on each side of the screen. Yeah, the name of the distro is KaOS, so the panel on the right does make sense. Because it doesn't make sense, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the things that, a lot of people, when Unity came out, when Ubuntu came out with their Unity desktop environment, a lot of people, thought it was strange and foreign as far as just the look and feel and the workflow. But from a user standpoint, what they did with that left-hand panel, and then you guys remember they also put, the close and all the window buttons on the left-hand side. So imagine all your windows are open like this window's opened. Your buttons are right here on the left-hand side of the screen. That panel is right here on the left-hand side of the screen. The dash, your menu, where was that? Top left-hand side of the screen. Your mouse pretty much hung out right here all the time. When you open up your web browser and it's maximized, your forward and back buttons, where are they? Top left screen. It's like everything's right there. You never had to travel to the right hand side of the screen for anything in Unity. It made a lot of sense. Matter of fact, it made so much sense that even though I don't run Unity on any of my machines, I don't run Ubuntu, I often do take the time to move the buttons to the left hand side of my Windows now, because it does make a lot of sense having everything on the left hand side of the screen. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, Alice is in the chat. Yay, made the live stream. Good to see you, Alice. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, if it doesn't boot up, your machine will be in KaOS. Okay. Yeah, Joe. Yeah, good point. It's an easy fix, though, as far as, they just don't set, one of the partitions to be bootable. You just go back in with a live USB and, make whatever partition needs to be bootable. You need to turn that flag on. But again, from like a new user perspective, yeah, that's kind of a bad thing to that's a bad thing to overlook. Let me put my tube of Vegemite up so everybody can see it. Again, the Vegemite wasn't that bad. Alright. Brendan, I decided to try out AWM because it was written in lieu of the awesome window manager. Yeah. It's the language I've been programming in for over a year now. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people pick like the tiling window manager or whatever window manager, these minimal window managers, these obscure window managers that I review. The reason a lot of people pick the ones they do is because they happen to be written in a language that they understand or work in. Like if you're trying to learn Haskell, you're going to install something like Xmonet. I mean, that's just what you're going to do. If all you do is Python programming, something like Qtile makes a lot of sense. Yes, you said you were fine with most of the tiling window managers and can live with, Qtile, Xmonet, i3, etc. But do you have a favorite tiling window manager, and why? Well, my favorite's, kind of like my favorite distro. I don't have one. My favorite's the one I'm in right now. So I guess my favorite would be Qtile because it's what I'm running But if I'm being honest, my favorite tiling window manager is Xmonad. Yeah, I like fast. I like speed, and Xmonad is blazing fast. Of course, you said favorite tiling window manager. Still my favorite window manager, period, of all time. You guys know I love OpenBox. I'm an OpenBox guy. Always will be. Alright, so the installation has completed. In the Calamares installer, what you need to do is click this, tick this on here, restart now. Make sure that's ticked on. Click done, and your machine should reboot. On physical hardware, if you're running a live USB at this point, you need to unplug it and then restart. For me, I need to detach the ISO from my VM, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to X-kill this VM. And go to the settings on this VM, go back to storage, and right here where I have the ISO attached, I'm going to detach it. Now when I restart the VM, this should be our newly installed KaOS instead of the live environment. And it is. Looks like the installation completed, and it's booting up just fine. And let's see how long boot up time takes. Well, I already have a cursor, so it's trying to load us into the graphical environment, but it is taking a little longer than a lot of Linux distros. Alright, anyway, we got to our login manager. Really strange looking login manager. Not sure I like that thing. Anyway, I'm going to log in. And it didn't let me log in with my password. I know that's the right password. Okay, that's strange. Okay, well, I think... Is this not the right user? That's the DT user. Okay, that's the problem. We hadn't selected our user. That's a strange login screen. If it's the first time you've ever seen it, that's kind of a weird login screen. Good thing is VirtualBox guest editions work out of the box here on KaOS. You can see I have a full 1920 by 1080 screen resolution here, and I didn't have to do anything for that. It just works. Unfortunately, on some Linux distributions, you do have to fight to get that resolution. You have to install the guest editions. On some Linux distributions, you have to install some dependencies to get the guest editions to install properly. Alright, so this is KaOS. I'm going to go back to the chat here, catch up on the chat before I go through the distro here. Let's see. Alright, so more on exabytes versus terabytes. Tony T, are you using MBR or GPT based? I'm assuming we're asking questions about the guy that was having problems with the bootable flag. MBR, the master boot record, is usually used on folks that are using BIOS. GPT is usually for folks using the EFI. At least that's what's recommended. Let's see. And if you do not know any programming language, you will use the Windows Window Manager version 10. No, don't use the Windows Window Manager. Even if you don't know any programming languages at all. A lot of these minimal window managers I show you on the channel, you don't have to be a programmer to configure these things. The config files for these, a lot of them are easy enough to understand. You can hack on them without really knowing, whatever programming language they happen to be written in. Let's see, any tutorials for SMB with NTFS drive, because Ubuntu write like GUI settings don't work. Not sure what we're asking there. I have no opinion on that. As far as the NTFS drive, I don't know. I don't use NTFS for anything. I haven't had a Windows machine in a decade, so maybe somebody in the chat can help you out. Anyone know what it means when your caps lock and scroll lock lights flash when the system locks up? Oh, I mean, I guess that depends on operating system or maybe even the keyboard you're running. Yeah, I don't know about that either, Brendan. I do appreciate, some of you guys are looking for some support type questions. But a lot of times, if you ask these kinds of questions on your whatever distro you're running, you go to their forums or you go to their IRC chat channel, you'll get a quicker response and you'll get better responses. I know a lot of folks message me support stuff, and unless I happen to be running the distro you're running, the machine you're running, the hardware you're running, I really can't help you out. So what you need is to post on a forum where there's hundreds or even thousands of people that see your question. The odds of somebody having the same issue as you and having solved it, know how to fix the problem are much greater on the proper support channels. All right. Let's see. Yeah, how do you pronounce HTAT? What? I must have missed something there. All right, so I missed some of the chat. The chat is jumping ahead here on me. For some reason, when I try to mark my spot and I'm scrolling on the YouTube chat, as far as in Firefox, sometimes it jumps ahead on me, and it's kind of annoying, actually. I don't know if it's a bug with Firefox or just a bug with the YouTube site. Yeah, Vegemite flavored toothpaste, yeah. That's pretty much, it's Vegemite in a toothpaste tube. Yeah. Niall or Neil, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He says, nice, finally caught a live stream, very cool. Mohammed, is Debian testing branch suitable for daily use? Yeah. With the NVIDIA driver? Sure. Yeah. The Debian testing branch, it's not as stable as Debian stable, but yeah, you can live in it. I probably wouldn't do that if you were like a brand new user, because there is some potential for things to break on you every now and then. But all right, yeah, Python is a good general language. Yep. Random says he's tried to install KaOS. Yeah. So a couple of you have said you've tried to install it, but I guess didn't have luck. Of course, we had one person say the bootable flag wasn't ticked on with the automatic partitioning. Yes, Hex is asking, do I have any plans to take a look at Sway, which is the Wayland, I guess, implementation. It's really a clone of i3. It's not a fork of i3, but it's kind of somebody trying to write something on Wayland that basically mimics i3. I might take a look at it at some point. I've got some other window managers I need to take a look before I get around to something like Sway. Let's see. Yeah, Vasanth Developer says, hey DT, I'm lucky to be in the live session. Good to see you. And Vasanth, he's got a YouTube channel. He, she, I'm actually not sure, but pretty good YouTube channel. You guys, looking for other good Linux content, check out his channel. Yeah, Tux1313. Lights on a keyboard when you lock up could be a motherboard thing as well. Yeah. Peter says, by the way, about tiling window managers, you should add Spectre WM to the list. You know what? I don't know anything about Spectre WM. I should add that to the list. I should check it out as far as, do some research on it. I really hadn't had anybody ask me about that, Peter, but it might be something I'd check out. Two that I know I've got to check out. Well, I've got to check out Ice Window Manager next, and then I will have reviewed all 12 obscure window managers I set out to initially review. And then, because popular demand, people have asked me about BSPWM. Yes, I'll take a look at it. A lot of people have asked me about DWM. Yes, I'll take a look at that. So I'll take a look at those two for sure. I've had one guy ask me several times about rat poison. Maybe. So, yeah, Ben says, hola. Hola, Ben. ¿Qué pasa, amigo? Peppermint is a good distro for newcomers. Fully featured and light. Yes, it is. Peppermint's awesome. Oh, Luis. Hi, DT. It's my first live session. Very cool. Good to see you, Luis. All right. Let's get back to KaOS 2018.06. Of course, most Linux distributions these days tend to come with these welcome screens, these greeters. Basically, they come with buttons to help you quickly get to what you need, such as system settings, and that's what we have here: widget style, plasma theme, window decoration, mouse behavior, icon set, virtual desktops, screen settings, color, font settings. We also have tabs at the bottom for customized wallpaper, docs, advanced. What is advanced? Firewall, add users, configure search, energy, network, Pacman cache, system D daemon. We have some about information, news. This is probably the release notes that we didn't read in the installer. I could go through them now. And then, of course, quit, which kills the greeter program. Now, I will get into this very, very strange desktop with the right-hand panel, which I really do not like. I really would like to move this thing to the left or to the bottom or to the top, anywhere but the right, but for purposes of this video, I'm going to leave it in its default right-hand configuration. I'm going to go through the menu, see what's installed by default. Under development, we have Kirigami Gallery, Compare, and some Qt stuff. You know, the Qt toolkit. Education, KDE Marble, and Marble. I don't know if that's the same program, two different programs. Graphics, your standard KDE apps: GwenView, Carbon, Krita, Ocular. GwenView. Let's open up GwenView. Let's see, what version are we on here? About GwenView. Version 18.04.02. What version of KDE are they on? I guess I should have checked that in the release notes. We didn't even go over to their website and read about anything. Does it even tell me what version of KDE? No, the About KDE section does not tell me that. But I believe we are on version 5.13. Let me go ahead and pull up the website. So the KaOS website is KaOSX.us. Kind of a strange domain name. And let's see, if I go to news, maybe I'll get the release announcement for, latest news. Alright, Plasma 5.13.1. So it didn't take me long to figure that out. It was like the first sentence. Alright, so Plasma 5.13.1. Anyway, back to the desktop. Close out GwenView here. Under Internet, we have Falcon. That's very cool. They have the Falcon browser. I think this might be the first distro I've reviewed that had Falcon installed by default. Let's see, About Falcon 3.0.1. And it's using the Qt Web Engine version 5.11.1. Very cool. I actually have not played around with Falcon myself. A lot of the viewers on the channel have asked me to take, more of an in-depth look at Falcon at some point. I need to do that. I really don't know much about this browser. Again, KaOS is the first distro that I've seen Falcon installed on by default. Of the, 100 or so distros I've probably reviewed on the channel by now, this was the first one that actually had Falcon. Alright, Internet, IM Contacts, KDE Connect, the IM Log Viewer, KGet, which is your download manager for KDE, and Quassel. Quassel is our IRC chat client. I was just mentioning, for you guys looking for support, connect to your distro's IRC chat channel. How you do that? Well, you open up a IRC chat client like Quassel if you're running KDE, or HexChat. You can install HexChat. You guys that like terminal-based chat clients, Ursi or WeChat, good clients. Alright, also under Internet we have C-File and we have Skype. Let's see, what kind of Skype are they using? Are they using the web Skype? Yeah, it opens web Skype in Falcon, which is probably better than the desktop client, the Skype for Linux client, because that thing sucks. Skype just is so horrible on Linux. I mean, it's really not good on Windows in my opinion, but we've never had a good Linux Skype client. Back to the chat for a second. All right. Yeah, Vicent says, yeah, thank you, DT, for helping me. You are the best person I have ever seen. Okay. Thanks for helping small channels. Oh, as far as you guys that starting YouTube channels, yeah. You guys that are doing good Linux content, you know, I try to subscribe to you guys and try to mention you on my channel. Of course, a lot of people, you know, I often point people looking for good YouTube channels on Linux to the channels I'm subscribed to. If you go to my YouTube channel and go to the channels tab, you will see like 70 or 80 different YouTube channels I'm subscribed to them, all of them Linux, open source, tech related. And yeah, I have, of course, a lot of the big names you guys know. Of course, I have a lot of smaller channels in there too that I think deserve, you know, eyes on their content. Yeah, that's a pretty nice looking welcome screen. I actually agree. That was a very attractive welcome screen, and with all the tabs, there was a ton of information in that welcome screen. Yeah, there are many great window managers. Stump WM, written in Lisp. Okay, BSP WM. Yeah, CWM, kind of the default on OpenBSD. Yeah, I need to take a look at OpenBSD on the channel. It's another one I need to get around to reviewing. Yeah, I find KDE full of bugs. Yeah, I do too, to be honest. Yeah, PEP9, similar Wi-Fi issues. Stop recognizing my USB Wi-Fi. KDE is getting better and better. I would agree with that too. It's not as horrible as it used to be. KDE 4 was so bad. Yeah, so this has the new blur effects. Yeah, if it's 5.13, we should be able to enable the blur effects. I think you have to use the Breeze theme to get the blur. We may play around with it. And of course that assumes that the blurring is going to work in a virtual machine. I haven't tried it before, but we'll see if you guys want to check it out. Yep. Let's see, Falcon is more of a GNU Firefox. Yeah, Falcon is Reconq, rebranded, nothing special. Yeah, that's interesting. It's nothing special. I've had a lot of people ask me to take a look at Falcon. So, Falcon is a lightweight browser, very lightweight, similar to Cupzilla. Yeah. So is Falcon Cupzilla or is it Reconq? Yeah, Falcon is the new Cupzilla. Okay. KaOS is not based on another distro. That's true. They are an independent distro. They did not base their distro on a previous existing distro. Steven, he's still on Q4OS and Linux Mint Cinnamon 19 beta. Yep. Do you think DeepNOS is spyware? I don't. I think a lot of that was just overblown, and a lot of it was clickbait. You know, the YouTube channels that, you know, really preached DeepNOS being spyware, and some of the news articles out on the web, the blogosphere. A lot of that was just to, you know, for clicks. What was going on in DeepNOS was not spyware. It was just web analytics in their software center, which their software center is basically a website. That's why they had some web analytics in that thing. Not a big deal, in my opinion. All right. So I'm going to go back to the menu here. Oh, I hit the lock screen. So right next to the menu is the lock button. It's kind of an odd place to put that thing. And then the power button actually is right under that. Yeah, just everything about the way this menu, or this panel is laid out is strange. I would change this completely. If I was going to run KaOS, there's no way I'm keeping that panel on this side of the screen, and I'm not keeping these buttons arranged that way. That makes no sense. Alright, let's see. Multimedia, we have Elisa, K3B. K3B is KDE's disk burning utility. We have Camoso. Camoso is a really nice webcam app. Of course, we're not going to see anything here in the VM. It's not going to connect to my webcam through the VM because I don't have that set up. Even if I did have it set up, it still wouldn't connect to it because my webcam is already in use with another program right now, OBS, doing the stream. So, but KaOS is a really neat program. MPV is our media player. We have the cute V4L2 test utility, which is for our video, for our camera settings. Simple Screen Recorder is installed. That's an interesting selection too. Simple Screen Recorder is great for recording your desktop, similar to the way I'm basically recording my desktop during the stream. You could do something like I'm doing here with my distro review with Simple Screen Recorder. Matter of fact, I've made a lot of my videos using just Simple Screen Recorder. If I'm not doing a live stream, for a lot of what I do, I can just use Simple Screen Recorder for it. SM Player and SM Tube are both installed by default. Let's see, SM Player is a really neat multimedia player. Let's see, this is SM Player version 18.5 using Qt 5.11, so it's a Qt app. And Office, we have Calligra Sheets and Calligra Words. So no LibreOffice, we're using Calligra. Calligra 3.1.0. I don't know much about Calligra myself. I probably would just uninstall that and install LibreOffice, to be honest. Most people running Linux are probably running LibreOffice. Actually, LibreOffice is such a popular Office suite anyway. Even people on Windows, millions, probably tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of Windows users also use LibreOffice. So I'd probably just stick with that one. Carbon is installed. Ocular, again, appears under Office. Then settings, we have our system settings. I'll go ahead and open it, but I'm probably going to come back to it later, where we get all our desktop settings and everything. And under utilities, we have your standard Archive Manager, ARC, and KDE. We have the ISO writer, Kate, which is our plain text editor. Really nice plain text editor. It just sucks you have to use KDE basically to use Kate. Kate 18.04. Utilities, we also have our character select, KFind, KGPG, KWrite, which is another text editor, Spectacles, Sweeper, and Vim. Let's open Vim. Actually, Vim did not open when it opened console, KDE's terminal, but okay, you have to hit enter before it launches you straight into Vim. And I could just close this window, but a lot of people who accidentally get into Vim, they can't figure out how to get out of it. You need to type : Q for quit, ! That quits Vim. Alright. So, back to the chat for a second. Missed some of the chat actually, quite a bit. XFC is rock solid, says Alan. Yep. Priyanka says, greetings from India. Very cool. Glad you could be with us. Yeah, SSR, Simple Screen Recorder, is fantastic. I agree. It is a fantastic program. When you talk about good, free, and open source software, things that we can point to and say, hey, look what we've got. Simple Screen Recorder. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, Jonathan, he says he likes XFCE2, light but robust. Yeah, Brendan, I have XFCE running on a Pentium 4 with 512 megs. Very cool. LXDE is my favorite desktop environment. I love LXDE, mainly because I love OpenBox. OpenBox is the window manager in LXDE. I use Manjaro KDE and Debian. No desktop, says Alice. No desktop on Debian. So when you're just running a server, yeah, LXD is awesome. LXQt is even faster. Umbrel, I used XFCE and Xmonad. Love KDE. Never could get LX whatever working. I'm assuming either LXDE or LXQt. Couldn't get either one of them to work well. Yeah, LibreOffice for the win. Agreed. In my opinion, there are so many desktop environments, window managers in Linux, I probably could live in anything from BSPWM to GNOME to OpenBox. Yeah, I could too. To be honest, I could live in any distro running any desktop environment or window manager if I needed to. And people have asked me, like, hey, if the only distro that was available was Linux from scratch, would you go back to Windows? No. I'd live in Linux from scratch. Or, I hate certain desktop environments and window managers. Like the one in TrueOS, that Lumina desktop environment is garbage. But if it was, hey, I had to use the Lumina desktop environment forever or go back to Windows, guess what? I'd learn to love the Lumina desktop environment. So yeah, I can live in anything. Siva, I don't hate Kate. Yeah. Kate's a great text editor. Actually, a lot of the KDE apps are really first class. Their terminal console, it's great. I wish I didn't have to install Plasma, basically, to get at the Dolphin, their file manager. Fantastic file manager. But you're not going to install Dolphin on any other desktop other than Plasma, because it pulls down too many KDE dependencies. The only KDE programs I install, even though I don't run KDE, because they're such great programs and they don't bring in that many KDE dependencies. Kdenlive, I have to have Kdenlive. It's such a great video editor. It is kind of like the best free and open source video editor we have. It does bring in some KDE dependencies, but you just have to live with it because Kdenlive is such a fantastic program. K3B for disk burning. Most of you probably don't do any disk burning. I still do some. K3B is awesome. Yeah, Tony T says, in early days I used to use Control-Z to get out of Vim. Yeah. I like to use LXQt, but not on my system. We need KVim. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. A Vim with a K in front of it for the KDE. Every KDE program has a K in front of it. Yeah. Let's see. Paul mentions he doesn't have an optical drive. Most computers these days are coming without optical drives, so that's kind of standard. Par for the course these days. Let's see. We pretty much went through the menu. The only thing left is the power session settings, which we're not going to cover. Alright. So, before I get to the system settings here, one thing I always like to do is check out the wallpapers. So, let's see. Is it configure desktop? Yep. I will say this VM is running kind of slow. And I gave this machine 2 cores of my 6-core CPU and 4 gigs of RAM. And it is kind of sluggish, if you guys can kind of see. It's not snappy. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's definitely not fast. So, looking at some of the wallpapers that are installed by default. Most of them are just standard wallpapers I've seen a million times before. I'm not exactly sure what wallpaper packs these came out of. Standard KDE wallpapers. I've seen pretty much all of these except for like the ones that are branded with KaOS. Something like that. Which actually, for something minimal, black and white, that's not bad. But you know what, I'm just going to go with one of these same old tired KDE wallpapers I've seen a million times, because some of these are actually really nice. Well, maybe something nature related. What about something like that? Yeah, that's not bad. That would look great with a dark theme, actually, instead of this light theme. We should play with a theme. So, get back to the settings manager, the system settings. Alright, workspace theme. Let's see. And you guys were asking about the blur. I think the blur has to be done using the Breeze theme. I think. So I'm going to... Oh my. What happened there? Oh, that's a preview of the Breeze theme. Oh, that's a really big preview. And if I hit apply... Okay. And how do I get the blur effect going, though? That's the thing. Or is it enabled by default? It kind of has some transparent menus, but that's not much of a blur, at least by default. I think you can adjust that. See, desktop theme here. Desktop theme is set to Breeze. Let's see, I might actually have to do a search on how to adjust the blur, but it did enable it. It looks like it is enabled by default. This menu does have some transparency and some blurring going on. But because of the theme color and then of course the wallpaper I'm using, I would like this to be a little more transparent than it is. It's very subtle the way it is right now. Yeah, will the blur work in a VM? It looks like it is. I think it is working here. I don't know. Like I said, it's subtle. And you know, I should open up another program and see how the menus work. Aren't the menus supposed to have blurring as far as like the program menus? Of course, Dolphin doesn't have any kind of traditional menus. How about a right-click menu? That's not transparent or blurred in any way. So, theming options though. We were going to play around with the blur, but I mentioned actually the wallpaper and everything I was using would look better with a dark theme. They have something called Midna Dark here. Let's check that out. Oh yeah, I like that. Of course, you know, we're gonna. Well, we still have some transparency. Yeah, can you guys see that? That actually, again, it's very subtle. I would like to make that a little bit more opaque. But man, for a black, I mean, that's a really dark theme, almost black, which I like. That's not bad. Let's see what icons we can change to. We open up the Dolphin file manager again so we can see. You know, actually, that's a pretty nice icon set. The Midna Dark icon set. Yeah, I actually wouldn't change anything about that. I really like that. That is really one of the nicest Plasma themes I've seen. Yeah, that's not bad. Somebody was asking about firewalls earlier. Nomad firewall. So, and the firewall is enabled. Okay. Hardware. Of course, this is your standard settings for input devices. Keyboard, mouse, joystick, touchpad. Display and monitor, multimedia, power management, KDE Connect printers, removable storage. You know, the usual suspects here in the system settings. So, one thing I should take a look at is system resources because, again, this VM is kind of slow. Slower than I expected. Yeah, KDE never seems snappy. Somebody mentioned in the chat. Yeah, but this is slower than on some of the other KDE distros I've tried. It just seems sluggish, and I don't know why. Alright. I'm going to try to catch back up on the chat. Yeah, Alice mentioned earlier Debian with no desktop. She runs servers, yeah, on her work PC. Yeah, TSM, Windows far and away in the rear view mirror, yeah. Yeah, once you leave Windows and come over to Linux, you're not going back. And, you know, I know, I'll never go back to Windows. I can't even imagine running Windows now. Yeah, I like that K3B stands for KDE Burn Baby Burn. Yeah, Samsung icon theme. Yeah, I like KaOS icon theme. Midna theme is beautiful, the white and dark. Yeah, you may want to turn off the compositor in KDE. Yeah, KDE's never seems snappy. KDE can be very snappy, so we got different opinions. One guy says it's never snappy, one guy says it can be very snappy. Yeah, and probably both of you are correct. You know, I've had machines where KDE ran like a dog. You know, but you know what? Some of the ones I've tried out recently, you know, they're not that bad. I mean, they're booting up, you know, using like 400 megs of RAM, which is really good. Yeah. Tom literally just uploaded a video on KaOS. Very cool. I mean, KaOS just came out yesterday, so probably a lot of the Linux channels are going to take a look at it. Alright, DT, I think the settings are in the application style. For the blur, we'll check it out. Yeah, there are less than 3% people using Linux in India, says Vasanth developer. That's unfortunate, but you know, that's probably about here in the States as well. You know, maybe 3% of everybody in the US actually uses Linux. Maybe. Spin Viking, Dolphin is terrific. I wish more distros had it as the pre-installed file manager. Paul says, Linux enjoys about a 0.9% desktop market share. Yeah. Alright, so what were the settings? The settings are in the application style. So I'm going to go back to system settings, see if we can find that. I don't run KDE that often, so... And KDE has so many settings, and oh, look at that. I tried to open the settings manager and I got a crash. You guys saw the crash report come up? It appeared behind my webcam, unfortunately, but we had a crash. Let's see if that happens again. System settings. Okay, it launches this time. Okay. So application style. Okay. Widget style is Breeze. Fine tuning. Is it fine tuning? No. Window decorations. Where do I need to go here? Whoever was telling me to go to application style for the blurring. Not exactly sure where I need to go. Widget style, I would assume. Configure. Configure, yeah, and one of the tabs is transparency. Okay. If we change that, does it make it any... Probably have to click OK. Oh yeah, I think that works. Let's try that again. Configure, transparency. Let's make it really transparent so if we can actually see if it changes anything. I'm not really seeing any changes though. That's for the widget style Breeze. Are we still using the Breeze widget style? We may not be. Let's go back to workspace theme. See the desktop theme. Just use Breeze. Yes, so I think you do have to use the Breeze desktop theme, the Breeze widget theme. When I changed to that, you saw how now it's respecting all that transparency. So, and that actually looks really, really nice. I must say, that is sharp. I mean, I'm not really big on, you know, having a lot of fancy graphics and animations and a lot of bling to my desktop, but wow, that's gorgeous. That's the only thing I can say about that. That's beautiful. That's yeah. So Koyo says Linux's market share is actually about to get to 7% soon since Windows 8. Yeah. Of course, you know, when we talk about Linux's market share, are we including things like Chromebook? Because if we're including Chrome OS, then the Linux market share is quite a bit higher than what most people report. Yeah, we need to thumbs up, guys. Appreciate that, Tux. Again, it's kind of an impromptu stream. You know, I just felt like doing something, you know, while I was, you know, having a beer before bed. Figured I'd get on, do something. I really wanted to take a look at KaOS anyway. I really wanted to take a look at the new Plasma 5.13 too. I haven't taken a look at any distro running it yet, or the blur effect. That was really neat. Let me go back to that for a second. I mean, that is just such a really neat effect. You know, transparency with the Gaussian blur effect. That is really sharp. Now, the real question is system resources. I mentioned that earlier. Let's see if I can pull up a terminal. Does the super key, is it binded to open the menu? It is. So console with a K. Alright. Wonder if HTOP is installed. Probably not. I didn't see it. Yeah. Let's open up their GUI system monitor. KSysGuard. And go to system load. And we'll let this settle down for a second. And you know what? Even though I said the VM seems kind of sluggish, those are not bad numbers. CPU really is nothing, which you would expect, but RAM, I mean, it's using about 600 megabytes of RAM. Right at 0.0.6 gigs, yeah, 600 megabytes. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I mean, sometimes you open up XFCE or Mate and they're using more RAM than that. So that's not bad. I mean, of course, it varies depending on what kind of background services you have running, you know, what kind of applets you've got running on your panel. But yeah, 600 megs, I can live with that. I would take that all day long for a full desktop environment. So that's actually pretty good. Let's see. Missed a little bit of the chat. Yeah, did you enable the blur in the settings? I just joined the live stream. Well, if you typed that a while ago, so I think you probably saw me playing with the blur in the menu. But yeah, we enabled it. It looks gorgeous. It's fantastic. For console, you have to change the settings to the Breeze theme there as well. Okay. Oh, so console is not respecting our transparency, is what you're saying. Let's see. You know what? It is, though. If you guys, can you see that the console is transparent? Yeah. You know what? It's not the same, though, is it? It's not the same color. It's more of the black, dark color. But that's not bad. I mean, I'm not one of these really OCD kind of people where I really have to have everything just right. But yeah, it would be nice if it was the same color background as the menu. But that's not bad. Yeah, I heard Google is ditching Linux for their own OS. Well, I mean, Google already has their own OS. It's called Android. It's called Chrome OS. I mean, they have a few different things. Of course, in-house, Google had their own spin of Ubuntu that they created called Gubuntu that they were all running for a while. And then I think they started using Debian. Yeah. You can install Linux apps on Chrome OS. Yeah, very cool. Now, yeah, that made some headlines recently. The fact that you can get, you know, pretty much a lot of your Linux apps in Chrome OS now. That's kind of a game changer. Kenny says, "Hi DT, checking in from Australia. Very cool. Glad you could join us." I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be on. I've been on for about an hour, and it's kind of late here. But I wanted to do a stream, you know, at a different hour than what I normally do here. It's very late here for me, though. It's 12:15 a.m. and I need to be up kind of early in the morning. So let's see. Yeah, but it's a VM. What is weird, since Chrome OS is Linux based. Yeah, Chrome OS, they built that off of Gentoo. That's what they based it off of, as far as the underlying Linux distro. Yeah, System D is a pig, says Paul. A lot of people don't like System D. I really don't have much of an opinion on the matter either way. System D works. I can take it or leave it. The one thing I do like about System D, though, if I want to install a snap pack or a flat pack, you have to have System D for those things to work. Let's see, Plasma takes ages to load on spinning Rust. It only works okay on SSDs. Yeah, not quite snappy, but Cinnamon runs with similar resources, yeah. GNOME is a RAM hog. Yes, it is. Deepin is a CPU hog. Monster. Deepin is a CPU resource monster. When you enable desktop effects in the Deepin desktop environment, in a VM anyway, you will see CPU spike to 100%. Let's see. Mr. Datham, is it possible to send a donation via PayPal? Yeah. So I recently signed up with PayPal. I created a PayPal account for the channel. If you go to the header of my YouTube channel, you'll see, support this channel with Patreon, and then you'll see a couple of other links. One of them is LibrePay, and one of them is PayPal. So I know a lot of people don't like to use Patreon, for example, so I created the LibrePay account where you can donate anonymously, or for those of you that want to do like a one-time donation via PayPal. Most everybody has a PayPal account these days, so I set up the PayPal link. Yeah, and they use their own version of Debian at Google. That's correct. Yeah. Google is actually developing an OS called Fuchsia. Okay. But it is not based on Linux. It is based on the Magenta kernel. I'm running KDE Plasma with Q4 OS. Now, Q4 OS is such a light distro with the Trinity desktop environment. I wonder, why would you put Plasma on it? Not that, you're free to do whatever you want. Probably not something I would have thought of doing, though, is putting Plasma on it. Yeah, I've had systemd not work, says Paul. Huh. Let's see. Yeah, I use KDE on spinning Rust. It seems fine, says Siva. Okay, so I think I caught up on the chat. I'm not really sure if there's anything else I want to do with KaOS here. The one thing, obviously, we need to do is take a look at package management. They're using Pacman and they're using Octopi, which, are standard in Arch-based distros. So, Octopi, for those of you that are familiar with Debian-based distributions, Octopi is very similar to something like Synaptic Package Manager. You can search by name. For example, I mentioned HTOP. It wasn't installed. Let's install it. Search for HTOP. I right-click over here, click Install. Go ahead and hit commit and confirm yes or no. Yes. We have to enter our root password. Anytime you install or remove software on a Linux distribution, you will always be asked for a root password. Alright. And that was very fast. I mean, that was almost instantaneous. HTOP is a very small program anyway, but still, that really was a very fast install. So the mirrors seem pretty quick, even for something small like HTOP. That wasn't too bad. And let's check resource usage in HTOP. Let's let it settle down for a second. Using about, 10% of the CPU, 662 megs. So it's a little higher now, but we've opened a few programs. Also, now we have the console running, which is running HTOP. Alright, close the current tab. Yep. Let's see. If I go back to system, let's see what other. We have the Pacman log viewer, but really we have Octopi. We have the Octopi notifier, which I'm assuming is in our sys tray for getting our notifications about updates. And that's it. What is Croso? I didn't notice this before. I'm not even sure what program that is. Okay, that is the greeter. Okay. That is the name of the KaOS greeter. Launch at system start, it's ticked on by default. If I was running KaOS on my physical hardware, I'd tick that off. Because I only really need to see it one time, and then, it's in the menu if I ever need to go back to it. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do tonight with KaOS 2018.06. Didn't play around with it too much. Again, if I was actually going to use this, like install it on physical hardware, I got to be honest, this panel, it's got to go. I mean, and I really mean it's got to go. I'm not even going to move it to the left-hand side of the screen or the top because I don't like anything about it. I don't like the way the icons are arranged on it. I would just create a brand new panel and start from there because I don't like anything about this. But you know what, just for fun, I guess we actually could move this panel. Let's see. Oh, are the widgets unlocked or are they already locked? Let's see, screen edge. If I moved it to the left, you know, already, you know, I mean, that makes a little more sense. Like I can kind of handle that, but if I move it to the bottom, oh yeah, that looks good too. Like on the left looks really good, on the bottom looks really good. You know, I could handle either one of those, but on the right, yeah. So I would definitely have to change that panel. Other than that, you know, the Plasma desktop, you know, Plasma's fine as far as the workflow, as far as the KDE apps themselves. The KDE apps are, like I said, many of them are first rate. Love Kate for their text editor. Love Console for the terminal. Love Dolphin, the file manager. Of course, I mentioned, you know, my own personal use on this channel. I love things like Kdenlive, K3B. The only thing about KDE Plasma I don't like, there's a lot of settings in it, and it's confusing sometimes to find where everything is in the desktop if you're kind of new to Plasma. The other thing I don't like about Plasma is I run an NVIDIA card on my physical machine. Sometimes there's issues with screen tearing and screen artifacts. Yes, I know you can play around in the NVIDIA settings and try to fix that stuff, but you know, when you run things like GNOME or XFCE or LXDE, you don't have to do any of that stuff. So, alright. So I'm going to go ahead and kill this VM. This was fun. I'm glad I took a look at it. Let's see, where is the, you see this power session button. Why is it wouldn't it make sense to have it somewhere over by the clock? I mean, whoever arranged everything on this panel needs to be fired. I mean, I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to criticize people that work on open source software. But everything about that panel was a little weird. Kill Virtualbox there. Alright. So, that was KaOS 2018.06. I posted a link to the KaOS website in the show's description. You guys go to distrowatch.com. You can also read some release notes over there. You'll find links to the ISO. The ISO, again, 1.8 gigs. It's actually a really, really nice KDE desktop. This is the second time I've looked at KaOS on the channel. Both times I've been impressed. The only complaint I've had about KaOS either time I've looked at it is, why are you putting that panel on the right hand side of the screen? But that's an easy fix, you know. It's just easy to drag that thing over to the left. So, I'm going to take a couple of minutes, catch up on the chat, and then I'm going to have to shut it down. Time for bed. So, last call for alcohol. Yeah, Pamac is much better than Octopi. Yeah. Well, you know what? I would probably just use the terminal. I mean, you guys know that's all I do. I just do package management stuff in the terminal anyway. I don't use these graphical tools. But Pamac, Octopi, both of them are nice. Which one is better? I mean, in my opinion, honestly, I kind of like Octopi. But again, it's all opinion. It's all personal preference. Use what works for you. I'm glad we have options, though. Let's see, I am using less than 700 megs of RAM right now watching this show. Awesome. Yeah, on Arch, you can use Discover. The Discover Software Center. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Discover. Mr. Datham, I just sent you a donation via PayPal. Very cool. I really appreciate Sincerely. Every little bit that you guys donate to the channel really helps. Because I mentioned, earlier today, of course, Vegemite. Had to order some of that, but of course that's, for my own personal amusement. But, I ordered, this CanaKit Raspberry Pi 3. I recently purchased a second laptop so I could do some distro testing on physical hardware, more distro hopping on physical hardware. So, purchasing some of this equipment can get kind of expensive, so I do appreciate that, though. Mr. Datham. Thank you, sir. All right. Yeah, Alice agrees that PAMAC is better. But Siva, he likes Octopi's panel notifier. And Random likes Octopi. You see, we should have a PAMAC versus Octopi, poll. Because I'm all in the Octopi camp, to be honest. But, I don't know, the PAMAC guys seem to be winning this debate. Yeah. KaOS needs to start with no panels, and it tells you how to customize it. That actually is not a bad idea. Let's see. Looks best on the bottom. Yeah, I would, if you're going for pure looks, yeah, maybe. My version of Minesweeper is KDE, the K-Mines. Yeah, good program. KDE Connect is amazing. Yeah, everybody loves KDE Connect. Good night, DT. Great stream. Appreciate that, Tux. Yeah, I'm about to kill it in about 2 more minutes. What's your daily driver or your favorite distro, DT? Ask Kenny. I'm running Manjaro on my main production machine. My favorite distro is whatever I'm running at the time. I don't really have a favorite distro. I've always kind of been a Debian guy, really, forever. But here lately, I've lived a lot more in Arch-based distros, and I've really grown to love Arch. In particular, their repos, the AUR. But I can live in pretty much any distro. I'm not a distro snob. I can run anything. Because you guys notice I run these minimal window managers, things like Qtile. Qtile looks and functions the exact same way with my configs. Whether I'm running Ubuntu, Gentoo, Fedora, Arch, SUSE, Solus, Void, whatever. This is going to be basically the same no matter what distro I'm running. It's going to look and function the exact same way. So it's a little bit different when you run these minimal kind of window managers. When you run something like GNOME or KDE, then there's a difference between the distros because Ubuntu's version of GNOME is not the same as Fedora's version of GNOME or Antergos's version of GNOME because they tweak their desktops, right? Qtile is Qtile no matter what. Right? When you install Qtile on any distro, it's a very base Qtile. You have to write a config. If I already have my config written, basically this Qtile window manager, if I install it on Gentoo or install it on Fedora or install it on Arch, they would function the same way. I wouldn't even know the difference, if that makes sense. The only time I would even know what distro I was running is if I opened a terminal and have to do something package management related. Because then, if I'm in Debian or Ubuntu, apt, Arch, Pacman, Gentoo, emerge. But other than that, a distro is a distro to me. They're all about the same. Alice says good night. Appreciate that, Alice. Good night. Joe Panico says night, Derek. See you soon. Good night, Joe. Hope the Vegemite works out for you. I think you'll like it, though. It's not bad. Steven says glad to catch the show. Good to see you, Stephen. Katrina, good night. Yeah, Mr. Datham says you're welcome. Again, thank you, Mr. Datham. Sincerely, yeah. Very cool. Ever used the Lin phone? No, I haven't. Mono a mono between PAMAC and Octopi. Yeah. Debian forever, yeah. Debian is solid. Debian stable. Greatest distribution ever. Although these days I tend to stick to unstable for everything. Alright, Brendan says good night. Alright, I'm going to quickly just want to say thanks to you guys that are still hanging out in the chat at this late hour. Alan, Alice, Brendan, Katrina, Mr. Datham, appreciate that. Paul, Random, Spin Viking, Steven, Thank you guys for hanging out. Before I go, of course, I have to give a special thanks to my patrons, all my Patreon supporters. So, David, Carlos, Nick, Daniel, Brian, Leor, AK, Ron, Keith, Dan, Michael, Tony, Bruno, David, Mike, Silvio, Omar, Mark, Mr. Neely Pops, John, Carl, Greg, Rob, Matt, Christian, Tiedemann, Stephen Z, Eduardo, Alex, Jake, Benjamin, Stephen B, Marcus, Interceptor, Tubella, Humade, Paul, the other Paul, Chuck, Ben, John. You guys are awesome. You guys help make this show possible. Peace, guys.